All right. So staying with the concept that it is self-confidence is built by watching yourself overcome obstacles and then taking a proper accounting of it. The easiest place to start with are people who use extroverted intuition or exploration, and then also have introverted sensing or memory as an influence in their life, because these two functions create a polarity of each other. They are two sides of the same coin. So ENP and INP types will favor more heavily on extroverted intuition or exploration, and the ISJ and ESJ types will favor more heavily on introverted sensing or memory. The strength that, let's start actually with SJs. The strength that introverted sensing has or memory has in this formula is that they're usually watching themselves do things and they're taking an accounting of it. They're observing themselves overcome obstacles because they're really tapped into their experiences. So they'll capture an experience and they'll review it, and they'll capture an experience and they'll review it. So their strength in all of this is watching themselves overcome obstacles and taking an accounting of it. When they watch themselves overcome an obstacle, that is, they're very good at remembering it and, like you said, doing a self-audit around it. The challenge that they have is they lack confidence oftentimes in their ability to pattern fast enough when a situation is close to something that they experienced, but not exactly the same. So if they have a new obstacle in front of them and it's kind of similar to something they experienced before, but it's not exactly what they remember, they sometimes throttle themselves from engaging in that situation and therefore remove their ability to watch themselves overcome even more obstacles. So their challenge is in the throttling.
Yeah, I have an example of this. 2 days ago, I was at the eye doctor, and the woman who was doing the prep, I don't know what her official title was, but she was basically doing the prep. I started talking about glaucoma. She was talking about glaucoma. And I just said, she was talking about it, and I mentioned marijuana. I was like, that's what marijuana is used for, right? To mitigate glaucoma. And I think it was, my guess is she was probably an ISFJ. We do this for a living. I can't be certain, but that was my suspicion. And it totally threw her out of frame. She had never heard this information before about glaucoma and cannabis. And she was trying to kind of understand it. And then she just went into repeating a lot of information that she had. And she's like, okay, we're done here. And I leave the room. About 5 minutes later, she calls me back in. She's like, I'm so sorry that I didn't track anything I was doing. I couldn't even focus. I was forcing her to pattern something right in the moment. And it completely disengaged her from all the knowledge base that she had in that moment.
It threw her out of frame.
Yeah, it threw her out of frame. And then she felt, I don't think she had confidence in that. She kind of wanted to get me out of the room as quickly as possible. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to leave yet. I was like, oh, I guess we're done here, because I was making her feel very uncertain by introducing this new concept. I was trying to take something she was saying and pattern it in real time in front of her. And it just was not in her wheelhouse to do this. So she calls me back in. We have to finish 3 more things before the eye doctor can see me. The point is that I think this is what was happening for her, is I put her in a deeply uncertain place because I threw a pattern in that she wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
And now she didn't have as much confidence in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. So ISJ types are very good at mining all the gold out of their situations, but they can sometimes lack self-confidence because they don't have that same sort of zest that puts them in a lot of new situations. So for ISJ types, the leverage point is being willing to throw yourself into more new situations, overcome a larger variety of obstacles. When an ISJ type does that, they then are able to get better approximations. They're like, well, I had a situation like this, and I had a situation like this, and then I had one like this, and then like this. And I've had a lot of variety of situations that are almost exactly to this one, and going back to our self-trust. And I lived through all of it. So I'm going to trust my ability to navigate through this one too. Even if I make a mistake, it's going to be fine.
You call that living?
Yeah. Well, it's stretching the comfort zone, right? Yeah.
This is my weakness, so I'm making a joke. Clearly.
Yeah, of course. I didn't actually get the joke.
Living by having to take every single instance and not pattern your life.
Oh.
And then in aggregate mapping it together
Right.
to kind of get a sense of your
I see.
timeline and your experiences and all these things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's actually a very rich, rewarding life that people like us have a tendency to not do.
Hence the joke.
Hence the joke. Thank you for explaining it to me. I think I was just so in my explanation. I'm like, what? What's happening? So I'm going to now leave and realize we have to finish the podcast. You completely throw me out of frame like the woman at the eye doctor. So the flip side of this, and by the way, ESJ types will also have a bit of this.
Yeah.
Now, they're going to have closer access to the other side of extroverted intuition or exploration. They'll have a little closer access. So they'll have a tendency to do more things. They'll actually throw themselves into a wider variety of experiences than an ISJ will, just naturally, just through curiosity and that, as I mentioned, that precociousness. But they're still going to be real hesitant. There's still going to be a sense of I don't know if I really feel good about this situation. I don't quite have a strong template for it yet. So even with ESJ types, the recommendation is do it anyway, right? Even if you don't really remember the last time you saw this, or you've never experienced this before, or you don't have you don't really feel confident in your pattern, do it anyway and overcome the obstacle. And the larger amount of situations you accumulate, the more confidence you're going to have in yourself to be able to handle anything that comes.